现在订阅同盟会英语，不论找工作、升学或英检，表现更棒。快上
StudioClassroom.com。
现在请收听教学节目。
Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Sleep well today on Advanced. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome back to Advanced Radio. I am your host, David. Today is September 29th, 2021. We are talking about health here at the end of the month. We've talked about a lot of things this month. We've talked about the environment. We've talked about screaming tomato plants. That's one of my favorite articles this month in our newsworthies. But today, we're talking about 7 ways to stay rested. And we're not just talking about physical sleep. I'm joined here by an expert on rest. Apparently, she did some research this afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to the people?
Hey, David. Hey, everyone. My name is Connie. And I told David I took a nap at lunch, but that was just a flat-out lie. Just a joke. Actually, I did some biking. And so looking at this article and the one for tomorrow, I realized if this was a, mini quiz, I would have failed every one of these. Oh. So far from an expert, but I think this was a not-so-gentle nudge from the universe to teach me how to rest.
Yeah, absolutely. A not-so-gentle nudge from the universe. It's a great way of saying it. It's certainly, sometimes we have those moments where we just we don't realize we have a problem until something comes into our path, some information, some conversation, and then we start thinking about something that we haven't thought about before. In this case, rest. I think for myself also, there were some definitely some different ways of thinking about rest that helped me understand why sometimes I'm so tired. Speaking of being tired a lot, Connie, how much sleep do you typically get per night?
Oh, I hate this question.
Is that too personal?
I don't sleep well. I would say I would try to get 6, 7.
Okay.
But yes, it's just not quality sleep, but I try.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm around the same number. 6, 7, sometimes less.
I feel like they say once you hit a certain age, so you don't need like 8, 9 hours. Like you only need 6 hours.
I don't know about that. See, there's research is always flying all over the place. I think a lot of it comes down to quality of sleep.
True.
I think if you're getting, I know a guy. He's got to be in his 60s, maybe pushing 70. The guy gets 5 hours of sleep every night.
And he feels
great.
Wow, okay.
Right? But he's one of those people with the rare special ability of he lays down in the bed, he's asleep.
Oh, nice.
He's not tossing and turning.
That is some superpower.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. How long does it typically take you to fall asleep, Connie?
Oh gosh, hours. Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
that's terrible. Actually, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Some nights are like that for me. Some days, I think my typical magic number is about 30 minutes.
Wow, that's fast. That's not bad.
On a good night.
And you don't need any help, like no TV.
No
melatonin.
Yeah. Typically, I can. Sometimes I drink tea.
Tea.
Yeah.
That is the opposite of sleep.
It's chamomile tea.
Liquid.
Yeah. Well, I'll drink it about an hour before I go to sleep, so then I have time to get it out of my system. And then
chamomile doesn't have caffeine, so I think, right?
It doesn't. That's the point. Yeah, it doesn't contain caffeine, so it actually calms you down, and it really works. It really works. I know some people who keep little bags of lavender, which is a spice or a flower. Actually, it's a flower that the smell of lavender has a relaxing effect.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of like little satchels and potions and
Well,
liquids.
not potions. Hold on.
You know,
We weren't quite going.
mixture. But I guess everyone's different. You really have to find something that works for you.
You do. And for me, actually, so while we're on this subject, of course we're on the subject, it's the subject of today's article, but one thing that worked that I did for a while was I had certain music that I would listen to before I went to bed. And it was just soothing music, very kind of like, very atmospheric, and it was just pictures of the universe. And I would listen to this music, and I would look at pictures of stars and distant planets and galaxies and stuff like that, and it would just calm me right down. I would do a little bit of journaling, and then I would go to sleep. And actually, I don't go through that same process now, but I did that. I made that my routine for about 6 months. Before that point, I had a lot of trouble going to sleep. After that point, even though I don't do the same thing, I still sleep easier.
I think it really is a mental channel that you need to exercise and get in that space and figure out how to get yourself in that space even without the, video or the music.
Or the potions.
Right, the potions. Take less of the potions.
A potion, in case you're wondering, is sort of a word that you often find in like a fantasy book. That's like something that, someone who does magic might make this substance, this special liquid by mixing different things together, and a potion will have magic powers or something.
There's always a cost though, so try not to take them.
Yeah, well, generally don't fool around with magic.
Well, I just mean like, anything. If an adult potion would be, maybe some people will drink before bed.
Oh, right, yeah.
I heard milk works, I guess milk is okay.
Milk is
okay. As potions go, I think milk is okay.
As far as potions go, milk can do the trick.
Right.
Yeah. My mom actually used to give us warm milk with cinnamon.
Oh.
Yeah, if we couldn't
Before
sleep.
bed.
Before bed, if we couldn't sleep. Yeah, warm milk with cinnamon. Yeah, that's a potion that I can say that one works. You might want to try that one. Yeah, if you can't sleep. But you know what? Listen, Connie, here we are. We're only talking about one kind of rest on this whole list. We have 7 ways to stay rested that we're going to be talking about. So why don't we hop into our readings and start talking about some of these. We're going to be starting off just reading the introduction and the first one, which we've already talked about quite a bit, but we'll continue to kind of explore these ideas, and we're going to learn not just physical rest, but 6 other ways besides physical rest that we need to be paying attention to in order to be properly rested. So let's jump into our first reading now.
Seven ways to stay rested. This doctor says getting 8 hours of sleep isn't enough. Even if the world makes it hard to relax, at least one doctor insists we all need to find a way to reset and recharge. And that's more complicated than just switching off your brain and switching on Netflix every once in a while. In a TED Ideas post, physician and author Sandra Dalton Smith insists, we go through life thinking we've rested because we've gotten enough sleep, but in reality, we are missing out on the other types of rest we desperately need. And she outlines the 7 types of rest that are essential for human flourishing. 1. Physical rest. This is the usual definition of rest we're all familiar with. But while we know we need to spend a decent number of hours in bed to stay healthy, a steady drumbeat of studies shows a large proportion of us still don't get enough physical rest.
All right, so even if the world makes it hard to relax, at least one doctor, probably more than that, insists that we need to find a way to reset and recharge. And we're not just talking about sitting down and watching TV to numb our brains. Who has some different ideas about this, Connie, that they're sharing with us in a TED Ideas post?
So a physician and author, Sandra Dalton Smith, says that when we think about rest, we just think about getting sleep. You know, if you get enough sleep during the night, you're rested. But actually, there's a lot of different kinds of rest that really allow us to feel rested.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had the experience of, before I go into that, now, she says, just as you said, Connie, we need more kinds of rest that are essential for human flourishing. Human flourishing here is just referring to humans really being able to thrive, not just survive, but to grow, to feel fulfilled, to have joy, right? And so we're starting off with physical rest, but there are 6 others that she says are also really important. Now, Connie, I want to ask you, have you ever had the experience where you go to bed and then you sleep for a long time, like maybe 8, 9 hours, but then you wake up and you're exhausted, like you're still tired?
You know, there's one night I haven't been able to sleep, like if I had insomnia or I just could not sleep for whatever reason. And then the next day I sleep like 10 hours. I feel like absolute garbage that day that I wake up after 10 hours. I'm just like all groggy and like I don't know what's going on. And oh man.
Yeah.
So for sure, I think that there's a lot of times we get enough sleep at night, but then we still wake up, we still feel tired, or, you know, we're having a hard time getting through the day, even though we've been in bed lying down for 8 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there are other times where I will have a really short night. I'll have 5 hours of sleep. I'll wake up ready to go, amped, like, come on, come at me, day. Come at me, Monday. You know, like seriously, it's the weirdest thing. Now, on those days, usually by 2, 3 o'clock, I'm ready to crash. You know what I mean? But on those days, sometimes, and there are a lot of chemical reasons for that. One, I'm not a scientist, although I claim to be oftentimes on the radio. I am not, in fact, a scientist. But I know that one of those reasons why that might happen is the chemical adrenaline, which sort of is a chemical that kicks in when your body is in a state of distress. So when I get 4 hours of sleep and then I wake up and I have to go to work, right, my body is just like, okay, we're gonna do it. And then it's just...
You're ready to lift the car off a baby and you're just high off that, you know, chemical, and it gives you like fake energy for a while. Yeah.
But there's a limit to it, right? And eventually you're gonna crash, right? So that's kind of the reason for that. But I'm thinking another reason for why we sometimes can still feel tired after getting a full night's sleep, you know, maybe 8, 9 hours, is just because there is we need more than just physical rest. Apparently, there is a steady drumbeat or kind of a consistent pattern of support in studies that show that a large portion of us still don't get enough physical rest, even if we're getting a decent amount of hours in bed. You know, and part of that though is just because we'll talk about it in our next reading, but there's just a lot more that goes into physical rest. There's a lot more that goes into sleep than just laying down in your bed, right?
I think rest is a very interesting concept. You know, like when a creature or something is rested, it's kind of stagnant. It's kind of not moving anywhere. But actually there's a lot going on. You know, you're processing, your brain is kind of organizing everything that's happened. And it's like renewing itself, like our cells renew itself, you know, and there's kind of that regeneration takes time where it looks very inactive, but it is a very necessary process. So small tangent. What were you talking about?
Well, no, actually, I'm gonna go with that. Before we go into our next reading, I want to say just about rest in general. It's so important that in Christianity and the Bible, even God does it.
Right? That's kind of what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So in the Bible, it says that, you know, God kind of created everything in, what we see, the universe, in 6 days. And then on the 7th day, he rested. And that's very interesting implications for why someone who doesn't get tired would rest.
Right.
So...
Because rest is not just about, I'm out of energy, let me rest so that I can get more energy to do more things. it's like there's so much to it, it's about sitting back. It's about enjoying. It's about feeling thankful. It's about feeling joy. It's about savoring life. It's about so many different things. And it's so important that even in kind of the big sort of, like the law, when God is makes his law with his people, one of those laws is for people to honor that day of rest that God took by having their own day of rest, which would be a day of worship and kind of thinking about God and connecting with their community.
Right. I think that, in today's society, especially living in a big city like Taipei, I hear a lot of people, even like kids, like students, they feel guilty for resting.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I don't have time to be sick. I don't have time to rest because I have so much to do. And they feel guilty for like sleeping enough or like taking care of themselves. And it's just, it's so toxic. Like rest is actually, very active. Like rest has its function that needs to happen.
Yeah. It needs to happen in order for us to really be human in a lot of ways. It's an important part.
Right. We are not machines. We are not computers that can keep going and going and going. There's a lot that goes on that rest is a big part of.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we have articles like this. Now, why don't we go on to talk about some other elements of rest, to talk about, just as Connie said, what is that action that's happening? You know what I mean? What is that beautiful stuff that's happening in us when we rest? We're not just sitting still. There's a lot going on. So why don't we go on to our next reading, which is going to be points 2 and 3, and then we'll close out today's section of this article. Let's slide into it now.
Mental rest. Always have a tornado of thoughts swirling in your head from the moment you wake up to the moment you finally fall asleep? You need more mental rest. And even if you sleep a solid 8 hours a night, you're not going to feel fully recharged until you get it. The good news is, you don't have to quit your job or go on vacation to fix this. Schedule short breaks to occur every 2 hours throughout your workday. These breaks can remind you to slow down. You might also keep a notepad by the bed to jot down any nagging thoughts that would keep you awake, suggests Dalton Smith. 3. Sensory rest. Staring at screens all day and all night means your eyes never get a proper rest. But this isn't the only reason many of us never give our senses a break. Noisy cities, pinging notifications, and blaring music all contribute to constant sensory stimulation. Your brain needs a rest now and again. Consciously close your eyes and give yourself the gift of silence for short periods throughout the day.
All right, Connie, number 2, mental rest. You mentioned it takes a long time for you to fall asleep at night, right?
Yes.
Do you feel like you have a tornado of thoughts swirling in your head?
Oh, all the time. Very random, too. So, I'm very guilty of watching too much TV. And especially at night, I think part of it is just trying to get my thoughts to hook on a different narrative. And so I can kind of not think enough to sleep. But if I'm not watching TV, it's very strange. I just have random, just repetitive thoughts. And I don't know if it's part of memory processing, because a lot of it is just repeating memories. And so I don't know. But yeah, I have a lot of trouble with this one, mental rest, being able to have your mind just be still and not think about anything. I know that a lot of people do maybe meditation, or some people, maybe their prayer life is kind of similar to this, where they just kind of can calm their mind and things that come in, and then they can just let them go again, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, you're totally right about that. I can identify with the sort of mental loops. And here, when we talk about a tornado of thoughts, we're not talking about, obviously, a real tornado. We're talking about just kind of just constant thoughts coming in and out, or just looping round and round in your head, just like Connie mentioned. Kind of those memory loops where you're just thinking of the same thing over and over and over again, and like maybe replaying something in your mind over and over again. I can, there's sort of like a tornado motion in there, right? It's going round and round and round.
Right, and it does something in your neural pathways. I can only imagine it's like that short reward system where like you getting that adrenaline again once you really relive that memory, and that something is stimulating you, and it's happening again in your mind. And so I'm sure your body is just getting little shots of adrenaline and dopamine.
Yeah.
So that's not helpful for sleep.
No, it's not. It's not. And this is where the importance of mental rest comes in. Now, they give some advice about this, right? Now, here when they talk about mental rest, they're kind of combating that. They say that you don't need to quit your job, go on vacation, or something drastic in order to fix that. If you have the kind of things that Connie and I have, right? Like, which is, kind of lots of thoughts swirling in your head when you're trying to go to bed. You don't have to do anything drastic or dramatic to fix that. They say here that you can actually sort of schedule short breaks to occur every 2 hours throughout your workday. Have you ever thought about doing that, Connie?
I have. I haven't been terribly successful about doing it, but I know we had an article, I can't remember if it was SC or Advance, about 20, like every 20 minutes you want to take a 20-second break and look 20 feet away or something like that. Yeah. But I found it really helpful, like just to look out the window, just look out the window and get your mind to stop circling around and being busy all the time, and to take some time to let your eyes rest and B, let your mind rest. So the times I've done it, I think have been very helpful.
Yeah, me too. And actually, I've heard particularly looking at the color green helps.
Yeah, especially if it's on a tree or like a natural thing.
Yeah, especially if it's on a tree. Like looking at plants can really help you to feel happier, to rest, to relax. And also, this is something that I used to do, then didn't do for a while, and now I do more, keeping a small notepad to jot down thoughts that you have. I don't just do this before bed, I try to do this throughout the day. And that's something that helps me personally.
Do you think so? Like, I've never tried this, but someone gave me some advice recently about having, like, anxiety time, or like a worry time, where it's like, if you feel yourself being anxious, like, just schedule a time where you can just worry. You can just worry, and it seems to work. Like, you just let yourself worry, and then afterwards you're like, okay, give it to God.
I understand that. I understand
really?
that. Yeah, because it's sort of like, it's like you're it's finding a way to have some control over it. You schedule it so that then you're not worried about trying not to worry.
That's what this person told me. Like, okay, you don't worry about not trying to worry. But I was like, am I worrying about worrying?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Right. That might work for you. It might not. It's something to think about, though. Right. And here, before we go breeze past it, to jot something down is just to write it down. Right. And that's something that helps me. It might not be for everybody. I know I have a friend actually who writing things down, the process of writing for them does not help them sleep. But it helps me. It helps me get stuff out of my mind. But for a dear friend of mine, it really doesn't. So just experiment with different things. And we're almost out of time here, but I do want to hit this idea of sensory rest. Connie, how do you feel about this point?
I think this one is huge, especially in our modern society where we are bombarded with just sensory information from our phones, our laptops, light pollution in big cities, like everywhere. We are being stimulated in so many different ways and just different kinds of social interactions. And so this one is super hard to rest from.
Yes, it absolutely is. Noisy cities, pinging, ding, ding, pinging notifications, blaring music are all a constant source of sensory stimulation. We're constantly exciting our senses, constantly flashing lights, light pollution, just like you said, Connie. But your brain needs rest from all of that, So they talk about the importance of just finding a way to close your eyes and give yourself a gift of silence. So even that silence is hard to find in the modern age, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think we're created to be stimulated like this all the time. It's
Yeah.
like someone poking you with an electrical prod like
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
It's just we're not built to handle that kind of stimulation.
Yeah. So give yourself a break. The point is give yourself a break. I think that there's here at the end of the program, I watched a news report about there's this place that is designed to be the quietest place on earth. And it's a special room that has these special soundproof walls that like capture all the ambient sounds that are carried on the air so that you're in complete silence. And it's considered, people all find it to be very strange. Like,
I can't imagine it being quieter than our recording studio because my ears ring in here. So.
Oh, it's much quieter than even our recording studio.
Really?
Yeah. So, but like when you hear that kind of thick silence, you realize how noisy the world is. Even being here in the studio, you realize how noisy it is everywhere else in your life when you're in a room that's designed to cut out all the ambient noise. It's really an amazing thing. We are all out of time for today, so we're going to end the program and then sit here in silence to enjoy this happy little soundproof room to meditate upon what it means to have sensory rest. Until next time, I'm David.
And I'm Connie.
We're saying sayonara.
Bye.